In times of market swings, like high interest rates, not only is the market quite capable of self correcting through time, but it also has a great memory. Proven successful measures seemingly are just brought down off the shelf and dusted off and put back into play. Loan assumptions would be one of those measures that we've just simply not needed in the last 30 years of relatively low interest rates. But today, an assumable loan, a low interest assumable loan, is not only a great benefit for a home seller, but it also provides a more affordable home ownership experience for today's buyers. So let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons of assumable loans. We'll start with those pros. The most obvious is going to be a lower interest rate. In an environment of high interest rates, that assumption offers buyers an ability to go ahead and leverage into a home that they ultimately would not have been able to afford today if the entire loan balance was put at today's current higher interest rates. So, no doubt it's going to be of interest. Number two would be lower closing costs. Um, Closing costs are actually lower for assumable loans because they have caps on them. So you're going to find a lower closing cost per se. No appraisal would be number three. Again, why an appraisal? The appraisal took place many, many years ago, and that loan balance has been paid down considerably. So appraisal will not be an issue. Number four, less overall carrying costs. What I'm making reference to here is not only would we be looking at assuming a lower interest loan, otherwise, why would you assume it? But even if you're carrying a second at today's prevailing rates, the inclusion of that lower interest rate for a portion of the loan is going to allow for overall lower carrying costs for the loan. That's where I'm going with that. So, and lastly, and this is critical, the the taking over of the assumed loan also carries with it the ability to take over the term. So, since amortizations of loans has the front portion of the loan heavily weighted with interest payments and the back half of the loan heavily weighted with principal reduction, if you could step into the back half of a loan, or frankly, at any point other than the front end of a loan, you're going to actually pay a lot more in principal reduction and a lot less in interest in order to have that principal reduction. And that could be, in my opinion, probably the greatest benefit to the assumable loan. The next, we've got some cons I've got to show. Boy, higher down payment. That's the elephant in the room. Obviously, you've got to satisfy the seller's equity. Um, you've got some options. You can go ahead and get a HELOC. You can get a second. You can go with seller financing, but you got to address the large down payment. Ultimately, you can come in with all remaining cash. That would be the most obvious. But that also would be the number one reasons why assumable loans are not successful, because folks just don't have that much cash to put down on a home. Number two, under the cons, would be obviously you're going to have to meet the credit and the income requirements of the loan. You have to qualify for the loan itself. Obviously, the seller is not going to allow for an assumption unless you can go ahead and show to the original lender that you can qualify for it. Because unless you can do that, the seller is not going to be giving a release from the liability. So you're going to need to go ahead and qualify for that loan. The next is there's no choice of lenders. You're going to have to work with the home seller's original lender. There's going to be no choice involved whatsoever. But that, in my opinion, shouldn't be a larger issue to concern yourself with. Potential loss of VA entitlement. If a veteran is allowing for an assumption of his or her loan by a non-veteran, then it is going to essentially tie up that veteran's entitlement benefits. They're not going to be able to go ahead and use those on two different properties at one point in time. It's just not going to happen. There is an ability, however, for a veteran to have an existing veteran that does have entitlement benefits to go ahead and apply their entitlement benefits towards the loan assumption. And that, in that scenario, will allow that original veteran to take their entitled benefits and go ahead and use them as soon as possible. Excellent. Beyond that, we've got the issue of mortgage insurance. Now, obviously, mortgage insurance isn't unique to assumed loans, but they are, in fact, a staple to FHA loans in general. There is a caveat, though. If you can find an FHA loan that originated prior to June 3rd, 2013, that's the date when the FHA made mortgage insurance for life on their FHA loans. If we can go ahead and find you a home that is for sale or assume a home that has that FHA loan prior to that 2013 date, there may be a really good chance that you will have an FHA loan that will not have mortgage insurance once you reach about 22% equity position. So something to look out for, which kind of gets a person thinking, do you look for that, or do you look for 30-year FHA loans that already have had them paid off by about 15 years? So all that, that front weighted interest has already been paid, and you're going to be knocking off that principal payment so very fast. That reduction in principal is going to go amazingly quickly. Or do we look for you a loan to assume that has maybe an FHA loan that was originated either between, looking at the dates here, September 2020 and August of 2021? If we can find that loan, that loan is likely going to be in the high twos. Now that would be an extremely desirable loan for sure, and it has that added benefit that it's a relatively new loan, so you're not going to have to come up with a lot of equity in order to go ahead and satisfy the seller. So I'm thinking we got a couple of different options to talk about. Go ahead and give me a call. It's actually quite exciting. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.